But what we're seeing, by the way, is a historic reinvestment in transportation. Just to give you one statistic, by the way, on the roadside alone, because I can tell from experience, because I was Minister of Highways 10 years ago, we've increased our capital budget by 400%. We're spending on northern airports, I think, how do we put it in percentage? I think our budget this year is about 16 times what it was in 1999. So we're backing up, whether it be in terms of our basic infrastructure or whether it be through special agreements with Churchill, whether it be in terms of Centreport. We're seeing a very significant investment and reinvestment in transportation. And by the way, I appreciated the accounting perspective on elections. I'll give you another thing that we've done as well, and those of your accountants in the room will appreciate this. 10 years ago, we used to fund every cent on our transportation system, no matter how long the benefit was, it was considered operating. So if you built a highway, it had to be expensed in that year. I want to see anybody in this room that could run a business or buy a home if you had to pay for everything in cash up front. And that's essentially what we had to do. We now amortize all of the capital expenditures, whether it be in terms of our highways, other aspects of our transportation system. And that's made a huge difference because it's allowed us, for example, at a time when the economy has been slowing down, not to have to cut back. And in fact, on all our capital expenditures, from highways through to airports, we've maintained the record levels of capital expenditures. Now, what is the vision really going to be all about? I could talk, all day on Churchill alone. I could talk about a lot of the potential for Centreport. I could talk air, I could talk marine, I could talk various different things. But let's understand one of the key elements with the North, to my mind, it's recognizing that right now we have to understand, particularly with Nunavut, that we need to be working in partnership. And I was really pleased that our Premier was in Nunavut recently with the Premier of Nunavut, and we've moved further in terms of our transportation agenda with Nunavut. But I want to put forward that as a country, isn't it about time we recognize that having a land link to Nunavut would be a huge matter of strategic importance, let alone what it would do for Nunavut. I'm not going to get in the debate about whether we should have 65 fighter jets flying over the Arctic, other than to say it's time we had a road that connected those communities. And I would suggest, if I could be so bold, that a winter road would be a good place to start because we've done it here in the province. We have to also recognize, by the way, that here in Manitoba there are many competing jurisdictions in terms of resupply into the Arctic. I know Mayor Spencer and I have had many a discussion on this. We have to make sure we are there because I believe there's a historic connection with Churchill, much of Nunavut, that is something that should never be taken for granted. But we also have to recognize that one of our key elements in the North is, yes, we ship goods in, but it's the backhaul. I think, we see with Churchill, the challenge there is the backhaul. It was very significant. The Russians brought in a shipment of potash a couple of years back. By the way, 20, 30, 40 years ago, there was significant trade back and forth through Churchill. So in a way, we need to go back to the future. But it's no different with any of the northern supply that's out there. My sense, by the way, is as we move ahead over the next period of time, we have to be focused on the short term. We have to be focused on the longer term vision. I really believe, by the way, in 10 and 20 years from now, many of the investments we're making right now, many of the initiatives we're looking at are going to pay off very significantly. I see Manitoba as being, perhaps on a smaller scale on the transportation side as something of a Dubai. It's interesting. When I met with the Russians, first question they said is, well, what do you have to trade? What are you selling? I said, well, we have a trade section, and they will talk about things that we can trade, and we certainly can. But I said, we can offer you location. And by the way, they can offer us location as well. That's one of the key elements with transportation. Yes, it's going to take some time to bring to fruition, but I want to suggest that one of the key elements is going to be based on understanding what the vision is for the province. And that is that we are not the back door, we are the front door. And when you notice I said Manitoba, it's not just the North, it's Manitoba as a whole. If we see even a small part of the potential of what we're talking about realized, whether it's Churchill and the Bay Line, or our connections with the Pacific ports or Thunder Bay, whether it be Centerport or any of the developments on the air side, I can tell you one thing. You're going to see a very significant growth in freight moved through Manitoba. You will also see significant spin-offs because every jurisdiction that has brought in, for example, inland ports, one of the first things they've seen is there's a significant amount of spin-off that goes with it. And indeed, that is part of our agenda with Centerport. It's not just about the transportation side. You will see, by the way, I think, some evolving partnerships. You know, as we deal with the Russians and we deal with Brazil and with India and China, you know, the BRIC countries, and I think more and more people are paying attention to the fact that those BRIC countries are going to be key partners down the line, along with our traditional partners, particularly with the U.S. And I can't, by the way, underestimate the degree to which we already are significantly dealing with the BRIC reality in this province. My community in Thompson, the mine is owned by a Brazilian company. We are seeing significant interest by the Chinese. Much of our raw materials now are being purchased, with everything from grain to minerals. I see huge potential with India, by the way, that is looking to Canada as a strategic partner. And, you know, the Russians, I can't say enough about the fact, by the way, that we have to perhaps get rid of some of our Cold War stereotypical views of Russia. They see us as, you know, there's a lot in common. I mean, for one thing, you can always talk hockey. I got to tell you this. I got to make a confession. I did go and meet with the Deputy Governor in Krasnoyarsk, and I thought I was doing okay on the transportation side, but then he sort of said, Manitoba. He said, Winnipeg Jets. And I said, well, they're in Phoenix right now, but I said, they'll be back within a year or two. And I then turned to him, and everything was translated, but didn't get to the translation part. I said, I said, Russians know hockey. I said, Canadians know hockey. I said, Americans don't know hockey. He smiled, stood up, shook my hand, no translation needed, and all the rest of the talk on the transportation side went a lot better after that. But seriously, they are partners. They're ready to sit down with us. They're already working with us. We have an Arctic Summit that's coming up in November, very much a continuation of that process. I can't tell you how excited I am about the prospects ahead for us. So as you meet and as you've had the presentations in terms of the supply chain, I realize, by the way, that transportation is really about two things. It's about vision. That's what I try to address a bit here as well. But it's also about all the components in that vision. My sense really is, over the next 10, 20 years, watch out, Manitoba is going to be the front door into North America increasingly. And you're going to see the transportation sector in this province really realize the potential that we always saw was there. Yeah, we had a bit of a delay because of the Panama Canal. But you know what? We're back with a vengeance. And our vision for transportation is a global one. We are on the global agenda. Every one of you here, even just by being here right now, is a part of that. Watch out over the next 10, 20 years, because I already see nothing but potential for growth for transportation, particularly with the northern focus here in Manitoba. Thank you very much.